Loves you, baby. You're beautiful.
July 2015, the world went crazy because we got the JBL Xtreme 1. And do you know what? When we got the JBL Xtreme 1 in July 2015, it was extreme. There was nothing quite like it for the size. And the boom, boom, boom you got, well, we thought it was going boom, boom, boom. It wasn't really going boom. It was going more boom. What was I doing that for? Because it's more upper bass. More upper bass than a deeper bass. Upper bass, deeper bass. But we was well happy. Do you know what happened? In April 2018, along come Xtreme 2. Yeah, it wasn't quite the shock of the Xtreme 1, but hey, it's a bit bigger, so got to be a bit more extreme. And do you know what? It turned out it wasn't so much the upper or the it was more the So, a bit, not quite deep bass, but not the upper bass. The very, very, in your face, we're not going to lie, we're going to give you upper bass. It really does. It still does. It still delivers today. If you get a deal on the Xtreme 1, still delivers if you like your upper bass. And I know you W King fans, you do love your upper bass. Mid bass. And then we had October 2020, we had the JBL, just checking because I get this wrong sometimes, the JBL Xtreme 3. And do you know what? We didn't have the upper bass and we didn't have the mid bass, we had the deeper bass. So we had options. We could have upper bass and we could have mid bass, or deep bass. There was something for everybody. Not really extreme like the Xtreme 1, because that was extreme in its day. It's all relative. Albert Einstein told you, it's all relative, and it is relative. Doesn't mean your mum and dad. It means you can only compare something to something else. That's why it's all about references. Everybody loves their first speaker because they don't have a reference for anything else. And then 20 years down the road, you listen to that same speaker. I haven't listened to it, but you did. People listen to the 78s on the turntable with just a horn speaker. And do you know what? They were still loving it. And that's the point. Everything is relative. Well, that brings us to today. 20 minutes in. Oh, I didn't check what time I started. 20 minutes. I think I was actually 4 minutes. Just a 4 minutes preamble. Preamble. It doesn't matter. But we're here because you saw it in the title. Well, unless I put a clickbait title and then you didn't know what was coming. So she said, never mind. And it's the JBL Xtreme 4. Coming out February 2024. So we're on a 2 to 3 year, it seems, cycle. So we got the JBL Xtreme 4 and everybody was like a castrated glowworm. Delighted! But do you know what JBL Xtreme, do you know what JBL said to us, all of us, to you, to me? They said, screw it. Well, we thought they were being rude, but it turned out they were saying, screw it, unscrew it at the bottom to be exact. But when you've unscrewed it, there's only one thing to do, it's screw it again. We're gonna unscrew it. So the big deal, if you didn't know, well, yes, probably, maybe for some people, this is the headline feature. This has a huge, I could really go to town. Oh, it's huge, but I'm not, because it's serious business. It's got a massive, massive battery. In fact, I wrote down how big it was. I think I've only had 2 speakers with a bigger battery. So we've got a 68 watt-hour battery. I've definitely got it in my notes somewhere. 68 watt-hour battery, but it's replaceable. So this is the big deal, but 68 watt-hours is huge. I had the W King H10, which was a big old bugger. 81 watt hours, a couple of speakers in the 50s, but 68 watt hours because before we had, I think it was like 36, 37 watt hours for all the other extremes. So here we are with its, you just have to have the right screwdriver, not a Phillips or a flathead. Yep, I've got the right one. It's a 1, unscrewed, 2, unless I've just wound it forward in the editing, because I know this is going to be like 4 hours, this video. There's a lot to talk about with this speaker. Is it extreme or is it not extreme? Or is it just extremely overpriced like the others? And there's a good chance it is. You know how much it is? 330 quid, $350. It's not the days of the Xtreme 1 JBL. It's the days of, I know Soundcore have long gone with their good value. Well, we'll get to that. Maybe they've still got good value to come, but lots of options ever since the motion boom. It wasn't breaking the laws of physics to get deeper, not deep, not 20 hertz, but, towards the 50, 40 hertz mark, not completely rolled off, is huge for a small Bluetooth speaker. We're getting those in the likes of the motion boom. We've just had the GoPlay 3, which seems to be most people's favourite speaker right now. If you can get past the battery, obviously this is about going portable 68. So what, Alan, right, we've got to cut this down. So, you ready for me to pull it out? I'm pulling it out. So here's the thing. So that's great. We've got a replaceable, swappable battery. First thing that strikes me is not hot swappable. You're going to have to take that out. So if you're thinking, I can keep it going and the party going, would it be nice to have a smaller battery, 2 of them, you take one out and put the other one in. So you're going to have to take this one out. Do you see? Now this is not a thing you can open. This looks like a proprietary battery pack for JBL. It's not like, I mean, it should be an easy job to go and get any OEM battery pack and stick it in there, but you can't because JBL connectors. Now, it's probably, I'm sure someone very shortly will hack that and show you how it's quite easy to open up and put any old battery in there. But until we know that, and here's the other thing, how much is it? I've got no idea. I can't even find them for sale. So they're advertising this is replaceable battery, but until they put them on sale, they're not replaceable. You'd have to buy a whole new speaker, or maybe you just have to contact JBL themselves. Anyway, another example of going to market before things are really ready. See how tight they are? So it is a tight old fit. I'm just checking if I got that the right way out. It goes in that way. Yeah. And then you can screw it back on. Obviously, I'll be winding this forward. Right. You will notice, obviously, we get a lovely strap in. That's the thing. Here's the thing. JBL Xtreme 1. Alan, well, we just want to, it sounds, I know, you can wind it forward an hour. You'll get to it. This is what I like to do in my videos. I like to tell the story for the 3 people who care. The complete story of the speaker. Thing that strikes me. JBL Xtreme 1. I haven't got big hands. Such a big fella. I've got surprisingly small hands. But I can still pick up the JBL Xtreme 1. JBL Xtreme 2, can't do it anymore. 3, can't do that. And it's even worse now because of the replaceable battery. You can see how it protrudes out the bottom. Bottom has a protrusion. We've got to do that one, which you don't have there. So even though you can't, so what I'm basically saying is they're not giving you a handle. How about a snap-on, snap-off handle instead of the strap? I'd rather. It's still awkward. I'm just, you know, if you're just carrying it around the house or carrying it around locally, a handle that pulls in and out of the body. Okay. If you use my idea, JBL, don't do what Soundcore do. Actually, give me a credit. Okay. So a handle that flips in and out of the speaker. I would like something like that. But no, you've got to use a strap because otherwise you can use two-handed. You've got a cup of tea, you've got a pint of beer, you've got something in the other hand. You didn't put the strap on. What are you going to do? Right. Should we get into the review? Isn't that the whole point of the video? You're not wrong. So I think I already mentioned the price. 350 quid, 330 quid, $350. So very pricey. What else to talk about? Okay, so the headline features for this thing. First of all, they're doing the old JBL thing. They're asking you to add up. Right? See, this is the thing. This is why I doubt what they're saying. They're not saying it's a 100-watt speaker on AC. They're inviting you to add up. They advertise it as 2 times 30 watts, 2 times 30 watts RMS AC power for the woofers, 2 times 20 watts for tweeters. So they're saying double it, 60 and 40. So they're instead of saying 100 watts, which may be misleading, or maybe they have somewhere, but I looked at the manual, it just says 2 times 30 watts for the woofers, 2 times 20 watts for the tweeters, inviting you to add it up. Now, for the JBL Xtreme 3, it was 50 watts. RMS, fair enough, but what are they measuring? We don't, or even how they're measuring. A lot of these things literally have no meaning. This is one of the things, what's the power output of these speakers, because you don't know what they're measuring, whether it's the woofers, just what their rating's at, the amp, but the amps come with various specifications, depending on the voltage that they use and how they implement it. And that's the thing. And to what load. And up to what point does it start distorting? This is how you're supposed to measure things, but not even just with Bluetooth speakers, isn't it? It's all over the place in audio. So first of all, I'm calling out the 100 watts that they're inviting you to say it is against the 50 watts. Do you know why? Because they still both charge on mains at 60 watts. So how could they pull 100 watts if the charger's driving it to 60 watts? If it's true what they're saying, we'd expect 3 decibels more overall power. We'll see that at the end. So, that was the first headline. Oh yeah, so the drivers themselves. They look like, on paper, the same specs as the Xtreme 2, which is 2 70mm woofers, 2 20mm tweeters, 2 passive radiators, obviously, on the side. But of course, many ways you can measure, again, no standardized way of measuring these drivers. Transducers, I know you modern people like to call it. Okay. On paper, they said 65mm for the woofers on the JBL Xtreme 3, but it may just be a difference in how they're measuring them. So they're either saying, oh, we've got bigger woofers now than the 3, which would, with the same power, allow it to go louder. But it's the same as Xtreme 2 anyway. But I did take the grill off. I did measure it. They are 70 millimeters. So, did we have an auxiliary? Yeah. So we have the auxiliary on the Xtreme 3. We don't have the auxiliary. All we have now is a single a single USB-C. By the way, now it does power delivery. Well, that's something to applaud. Yeah! Right? Cue sound. Cue applause. So now does, which means you can use this as a power bank. Of course, you could use them as a power bank before, but 10 watts. I think you now get 22 watts into supported devices, and it would charge, but it still charges at the same rate. But they don't need the separate adapter that you would have to do for the 60 watts of charging. You can now do it straight with a supported charger. Of course, it comes in the box itself. 60 watts. So power delivery up to 60 watts or 22 watts. As a power bank, that's good. But here's the thing: you're saying, well, you don't need that anymore. Use an on-the-go cable. You can just use it from your phone. I've tried it. Tried it with various cables and adapters, on-the-go adapters. Doesn't work. I can't get it to work. I've heard others say the same thing. Maybe it's very, very fuzzy on cables, but as far as I can see, that's not supported. Lots of new features, and I don't care. I don't care how long it is and who sees it. I've said that before and I'm saying it again. They say it's got a playtime optimizer. They're tripping over themselves between two things here. Between what they call their AI sound boost. So they're claiming new tech, real-time processing to process the signal and get the most out of the speaker. Okay, various ways they could be doing that and various things they could be doing. But real-time processing is not new. In fact, I wrote down here because I did have a Sound Blaster Live sound card in 1998. They were doing these sort of things. Now, it sounds like they're doing the Valier. So I asked the French guys, what's your name? Tribit Maharinga. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm sorry. I know I once asked you, how do you pronounce it? Even you didn't know. Valier, whatever you want to call them. What they don't have to do it in real time. Do you know why? They measure everything. The amp, the drivers, everything that's spec'd in a complete system, separates. Whenever they are suppliers of this tech to other companies, so everything gets measured. Then in real time they analyze the signal. They know what the drivers and everything else is supposed to be doing. They can adjust the phase and all that, and then lower the distortion. They know how dynamic range of everything. They can do that because the specs are hard coded, so it works well. The spec works quite well. The Devalier speaker I had was a load of crap. But anyway, get onto that. We won't get into that. I've already done that. So the point being, they're claiming AI Sound Boost as doing this sort of thing, where not just going by trying to fill in, which is what the Sound Blaster did, filled in what it thought was missing in the actual track. But this is trying to real time understand what's happening with the drivers and maximize their limits. They know, to play that track within its known limits, which minimizes distortion, means you can push it a bit more, get a bit more bass, blah, blah, blah. All sounds good. What I'm saying is, it's been done before, but maybe not exactly how they're doing it, using the term AI, which is obviously a nonsense. But they're tripping over themselves by advertising AI Sound Boost and also Playtime Optimizer. Now, these are two different things. One is probably quite clever. It will do things in real time. The other one is a bass cut. Playtime Optimizer cuts the bass. If you cut the bass, hardest thing to drive on a speaker is the bass. If you don't drive bass, you can go louder because there's more of the amp left, the more of the power of the amp to drive the mids and the highs. And of course, and there's the other benefit, you go higher. You haven't used as much of the power because you're not driving the bass. It means you get longer playtime, you get more absolute volume in terms of headroom. You don't have any bass. So, but just know, one's quite clever, one isn't. You can do that with any speaker and any third-party EQ. I did write down, even Tronsmart do this sort of thing with the AI Sound Boost. They called it Sound Pulse. It ain't new, but obviously everyone does it in a little bit different way. The mighty JBL got a bit more funding behind them. Perhaps they do it better. Of course, it's probably something they've bought in third-party anyway. The other major feature is Auracast. If you don't know Auracast, so we had Connect Plus, Play Type Party Boost, never backwards compatible. And what it allowed you to do is connect to multiple speakers or one other speaker if you want to do it in stereo. But it's proprietary, works over Bluetooth. It's a way of connecting Bluetooth speaker to Bluetooth speaker. Proprietary Auracast is a standardized way of broadcasting a signal to unlimited. It's like being your own DJ. You can broadcast your signal to unlimited other devices. So it's not proprietary, but you know what? As far as I can see, because obviously I've only got one Auracast device, reading through the specs, it appears JBL have locked theirs down. So the Auracast button, which looks like that triangle, as opposed to the egg timer thing, I would say, it looks like on the JBL Xtreme range. So they've locked it down so it will only work with other JBL speakers. So there was no need to do that, other than they're locking you into their system. That's really bad, unless I've got that wrong and somebody else wants to correct me. As far as I can see, they've locked it down, where the whole point of Auracast is anybody should be able to use that. Then you're asking, well, what if I've got a party boost and Connect? I don't know if it's right backwards compatible with Connect, but what happens is you can now still connect all these JBL various proprietary or should be open standard connection Bluetooth methods via the app. I'm going to show you that very, very shortly. I've written down, they say music time up to 24 hours. It's very possible, but of course they go on to say dependent on volume and audio content. As I said, if you turn the volume off, it goes on for 6 million years. It's a meaningless spec yet again, but that is a big, big old battery. If it's about really going portable, you need it to last as long as possible when you've got a swappable battery. But here's the thing, doesn't seem to be any way of charging that battery outside of the speaker. So they missed a trick there. Maybe that's coming down the road because it doesn't even seem to be on sale. Anyway, have you written anything else? No. Go for that. Right, let's get into the nitty gritty. You've got the app. I talked about the app. What else can you do in the app that you couldn't do before? Because there needs to be a lot about the speaker to justify upgrading over the JBL Xtreme 3. Look, I've rambled a little bit more there. Absolutely no need to do it. Okay, quick look at the app.
Into the JBL app, of course, default mode is JBL Signature. We also have presets now, chill mode, energetic vocal, and custom mode, which is a 5-band graphic equalizer you can mess about with to set your own custom EQ. We do have a new feature now called Playtime Boost. You turn that on, you're going to reduce your bass, you're going to increase your highs, which means more volume, more playtime, because there's no bass. We'll use this also to set up your speaker groups, your product information. Another new feature, device usage summary. I've just got my speaker. Not much usage yet.
Told you, well, I've just shown you and I've told you, using the app, you can still connect all these JBL speakers together. Even Auracast seems to be locked down needlessly to JBL speakers. How does that work? Right, I'm going to do it with the JBL Xtreme 4, the JBL Xtreme 3 and the JBL Charge 5.
So I'm adding my JBL Xtreme 3, my JBL Xtreme 4, and then I'm going to turn on Party Boost on my Charge 5. And all three in party mode playing together.
Does anybody here want to know about the frequency response? Because I measure, so you don't have to measure.
JBL Xtreme 4 in signature mode. Mids and highs pretty linear actually. Bit of an issue, 350 Hz. And the other issue is the big gap between around 180 Hz down to 75 Hz. Basically, most of your upper bass, some of your mid bass is disjointed because of the big one note peak we've got around 55 Hz. And then as we push the volumes, that bass quite rapidly dropping away relative to the mids and highs. At 80%, that bass peak is now below the mids. And by maximum volume, 100% volume, it's really just upper mids and highs. The bass is completely rolled off in real terms. We've got a new feature in the app now for the JBL Xtreme 4. Playtime Boost. So it's supposed to increase your volume, increase your playtime. Probably already knew. The only way to do that is to massively reduce that bass. In terms of absolute headroom, yes, it does go louder. Maximum volume is louder, but 90 Hz and down, you've lost the already rolled off bass is now completely missing. It's quite easy to remove the cover now on the Xtreme 4, but you can see it's tuned to have the cover on because you're going to get a big high. You take the cover off, more linear with the cover on.
I did say it was easy to take the cover off. You just got to pry that side, the rear side away. I did that without saying any jokes. And then there's a couple of screws. I couldn't help it. A couple of screws, you undo those. It comes off quite easily, goes back on quite easily. When you sell it on eBay, nobody will know. It's got presets. and it's got a custom EQ. Let's have a look at both of those and what is custom EQ based on.
We have presets now in the app for the JBL Xtreme 4. Just to quickly show you vocal mode, a reduction in the bass, push in the mids, some of the highs. It didn't take much thinking. So-called energetic mode, well, they've bumped the upper bass, they've reduced some of the deeper bass, and they've boosted the mids and the highs. So-called chill mode, their idea of more relaxing is clearly that you don't want any highs. The highs are well rolled off, as indeed is the bass. And then, of course, you've got your own custom EQ option. And just to show you, custom EQ is indeed based on signature mode. Custom mode with sliders at default is signature mode.
So, it does have now a 5... Is it? Are you improving JBL? With all the mic behind JBL, all the money behind them, they're a million miles behind Soundcore in terms of Soundcore's app, who've now even got onto sort of parametric equalizer within the app, and you can remember, you can keep custom EQs, several custom EQs. You can't do that with JBL, but we've gone from a 3-band silly thing to a 5-band. That's actually quite usable, but you want to know, it says this hurts, that hurts, but what really hurts?
So we've got a custom EQ option. What does each of those bands actually affect? The 64 Hz mark, centered around 55 Hz for me, affecting everything from 200 Hz down. The 250 Hz slider for me, centered around 400 Hz actually, and affecting everything 100 Hz all the way up to 1 kHz. The 1 kHz mark for me, centered around 1.3 kHz, affecting everything 400 Hz to around 5 kHz. The 4 kHz mark is around the 4 kHz indeed. Again, pretty wide, 1.5 kHz up to 10 kHz affected. And the high-end 16 kHz slider is a boost from 4 kHz and up. If you want more volume and you want to try pushing all those sliders to maximum, so we can see what the actual headroom they're giving you. Well, there really isn't any headroom. There's a little bit more to be had in the bass, and you can get a bit of a peak there at 1.3 kHz, but not great when you're playing at maximum volume. So really much headroom, but you can alter the sound for lower volumes.
Does that seem to be an issue there around that 150 Hz? Because you can't EQ it. You're going to EQ around it. Is that because they're trying to keep their signature sound? Or is it because you can't actually push that? It's going to distort if you push the 150 Hz. So 250 Hz, that does affect that a bit, but that's really a 400 Hz slider. There's no real headroom. If you max everything out, you're basically a little bit. Basically, you're going to end up where you were before. So we talked about the drivers. It's got the two woofers, the tweeters. Are they different from before or not? And where are they? Let's have a quick measure. And let's have a look at that dip around 150. Is that actually there? 150 Hz?
Quick look at the drivers. So on near field measurements, the drop in the upper bass isn't quite as dramatic as it looks on a frequency response measurement, but it is a bit of a downward slope, and the highs are an upward slope. And when obviously measured without the cover, as you can see, that big peak I've already talked about, that is smoothed out when you put the cover back on. The crossover, looking a bit low, it looks to be just under 2 kHz. And that passive radiator seemed to be tuned 55 Hz. They claim it down to 44 Hz, and as you can see, in reality, it is around 45 Hz to about 70 Hz, where it's tuned with that peak in the middle at 55 Hz. Just to show you how we kind of go from a kind of smooth upper to mid bass. If you look around the 100 Hz mark, it's only a slight dip. But as we get a little bit further and further away, it's getting exaggerated. So it looks like it's really a result of the interference between the drivers themselves.
So, diffraction. I said between the woofers, but actually could well be the cover. There's so much time of testing. I didn't test all that. We know the cover quite a lot affects the sound of the speaker because the cover is pulling down that big high peak just on its own. So it could be, but as also, see, the thing about diffraction is you move away from it, that's when you start getting it. And that's exactly what's happening with that dip. It's not there when you're right up. There's a little bit of a dip, nothing too exaggerated, which is what you get as you move away from it. So, anybody now want to know what it actually sounds like in real life? Okay, 50% volume test compared to JBL. I was going to do all of them, but it's going to start getting ridiculous. By the way, yes, shameless plug, I did measure all of them, and I did put it on my Instagram. You see what I did there? I've got an Instagram where I'm, even when I'm quiet, I'm a bit more active. So, this video is going to be about the JBL Xtreme 4 versus the 3, 50% volume. By the way, does play, and this is to point out, this plays about 1 dB louder, give or take, depending on the volume, than the JBL Xtreme 3. Yeah, what's that? It's not a big deal, is it, Al? Well, you tell me. When you're, and is it deliberate? Because most ABs that I've seen, in fact, every AB I've seen, they tend to equalize them just by saying both on 40%, both on 50%. Whereas I normalize that little bit of difference because that's the only way you can really hear the differences between two speakers. Because if one is playing even slightly louder than the other, it has a dynamic range to your ears advantage. Your ears become more sensitive to dynamic range. That's why we like turning the volume up. It's, you know, the sound is really the same. The track's the same, but it sounds better to your ears because of the way your ears are sensitive at different volumes. So if one is slightly louder, you may not realize it, but it's flattering it because it's giving it a little bit more, making it a little bit more dynamic to your ears. So that's why I normalize that a little bit. Understand what normalizing is. It's leveling it to your ears. I have my own secret recipe for doing that.
So what we can see is a lack of upper bass for the JBL Xtreme 4 compared to the JBL Xtreme 3, the 3 in green. That's all an advantage to upper bass, 500 hertz and down till about 65 hertz, where we get a bit more deeper bass for the Xtreme 4. Pretty similar throughout the mids. And the other big difference is where they have their peaks. The peak for the Xtreme 3 bring around 6 kilohertz, and on the Xtreme 4 it's a wider peak and it's around the 9 kilohertz mark where it's centered. And you can see it's the same story on both tracks.
So we can say 50% volume. I know because I've written down and I've just told you. But anyway, so the Xtreme 3, it's a bit stronger from 60 hertz. It has a stronger upper bass at these volumes. Neither of them are particularly balanced, by the way. But anyway, the other big difference is where they have their highs peak. We had the 6 kilohertz peak there, and we got around a 9, but it's quite broad kilohertz high peak. So depending on where the track's hit, you must understand a lot of these, especially electronic music, although there'll be some part of that track that's extending high, the meat of the track often will roll off quite early, even below 6 kilohertz, but for most tracks. But so depending on how extended that track is, and most of them roll off, either one peak will suit or sound worse than another, depending on the track, because the higher peak will be hitting less because less tracks will be extending that far, if that makes any sense. If it doesn't, Google it, you'll understand that there is some sense sometimes what I'm saying. For me, the Xtreme 3 sounds, I have to say that's surprisingly narrow, especially for vocals when I listen to them. But the Xtreme 3 is a bit warmer. To me, that's a bit nicer to listen to. This can be sound, by comparison, a bit brittle, a bit thin. Oh, should have mentioned, but it's in the video. As far as I know, there's two versions at the moment, the ND, the GG. It just so happens, pure coincidence, all my Xtremes have been GG versions. You're telling me at the moment the GG version is superior than the ND. But when you see comparisons, guys, please, you've already had people come in on my Instagram and say, ask me to explain why someone else said something different about the Xtreme 4. I've got no idea. You have to ask them. Well, how do I know? But I can tell you that you need to know what versions. JBL, if you didn't know, JBL have different hardware, different materials, depending on the versions of the speakers. I don't know. They claim it's the version numbers, which is the first two letters of the serial number, and the other two letters apparently signify something. It's to do with geographical location. But however, I could tell you, in the UK we get all sorts of versions. So that ain't true, is it? So we don't really know what's going on with these different versions, but they do. Is it just means it comes from a different factory? We don't know, but we do know they sound different, and sometimes exceedingly different, and sometimes one will float and one doesn't float. It's that different in terms of material. So before you come in and ask me to explain myself about someone else's video, which unless they're lying, and I know they're lying and saying, why would I comment on someone? I know you, unfortunately, for reasons of the X600, you think I was trolling other reviewers. I'm not. I'm trolling people who are lying. I'm trolling people who are misleading you. If you think that's not something worth doing, that's fine. But I've written down X3 at these volumes is punchier, and the X4, it is sharper. Yes, you may say it's clearer, because obviously when you boost the highs, a lot of people just say, oh, it's more detailed, but it's not really more detailed. It's just sharper. It's just coming out of the track more because it's more prominent. But it's nothing to do with better or actually more detailed. It's just got a boosted highs. So we go on to loud volumes, 75%. Listen.
I'ma catch a murder hate on my block in this cop mask on my face. Hesitate to give me some. I'ma catch a murder hate. 30 on the clock when I get guap, whipping on the scene when I get click, lean on the beat, on me, that's it. On me to take the key when I'm in a take the key when I'm in a get 30 on the clock when I get guap, whipping on the scene when I get click, lean on the beat, on me, that's it.
Hey man, can I get a favor? Yeah, sure, I know, see you later. Sometimes I just wanna be a hater. Gotta wash down the top 40s with a chaser. Your voice starts feeling like a waiter, scraping my mind against the cheese grater. Before you go, sir, you have to sign a waiver. That's alright, I'm aware of the danger. You wanna get away? You better get in line. Won't go another day of wasting any time. I've got a lot to say, can't hold it in this time. Got no filter, I got no filter. 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 No filter, I got no filter.
So flip-flop from 50%, we now see it's the Xtreme 4 that has the stronger upper bass. So really just different tuning, stronger in the mids for the X4, and then we see the peak of the Xtreme 3 giving us that brighter high end because the track is rolling off. But the other track, it doesn't roll off so quick, and so the highs are a bit more even because it's rolling on into the 7, 8, 9, 10 kilohertz mark where it's stronger on this Xtreme 4. It shows you that a lot of these comparisons will be track dependent. Again, advantage to the Xtreme 4 in the upper bass, but there's not a lot in it, and stronger in mids for Xtreme 4.
So there's about a decibel between them at 50%. It's about half a decibel depending on the track at these. But as I say, it does play louder, and you might think that's going to make absolutely no difference. Trust me, it does. It's going to make it. It's going to favour the Xtreme 4 in tests. Well, when you're asking me why does one person say something and the other, maybe because they're not adjusting for actual loudness. I didn't show you my frequency response waveform measured here. I did on Instagram, and for a reason. It would mislead you if I did it here, and I explained that on Instagram. That, you know, you get this anyway with these very, very heavily processed speakers that they're different, and especially when they're actually saying they're making the most of dynamic range and the limits of the speakers, of the drivers. On a straight frequency response, it's going to be a different result because the processing is not really coming into play in such a way. It's very different, isn't it, Jace Iyagi, when you measure Bluetooth speakers properly to measuring your full-size hi-fi and your bookshelves and all that, and then you mute me in the comments so you don't look silly. So what I'm saying is, if you looked at frequency response, this may surprise you, and it surprised me that actually, even when you've normalised them properly, now there's more upper bass for the Xtreme 4 than the Xtreme 3, and now I prefer the Xtreme 4. It's not a huge difference. At lower volumes, I definitely prefer the Xtreme 3. Now, these louder volumes, I am preferring. Maybe when you're telling me, why does someone say something different to you? Or maybe they're only listening at 80% volume. By the way, they both sound crap at these louder volumes. They're both dramatically reducing bass, and they both sound screechy. But comparing one to the other, if you've got an Xtreme 3 and you liked it, this sounds a bit better. Surprisingly, it's now got the fuller upper bass. But you can see there's any tweaking going on, because now it's got a bit more the mid bass or the deeper bass on the Xtreme 3. So what I'm saying is, it's very clear to me that this is the JBL Xtreme 3 in all other ways, but with some EQ tweaking. Maybe it's just the processing that's getting more out of it. But this isn't a 100-watt speaker versus a 50-watt speaker as far as I'm concerned, and this is not a major advance in human technology or whatever against Xtreme 3. This sounds a bit worse at 50%, and it sounds a bit better than the Xtreme 3 at these louder volumes. It's got a fuller bass. On my GG version, as we saw before, the other difference is where those highest peaks are, and they will make the speaker sound different depending on what tracks you are using. I try to use tracks that are pretty well extended, as high as possible, but they will still roll off, because I also like bass boosted, not because I like bass boosted music. I like deep music, not bass boosted. But I'm testing speakers. 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 That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to find what they can handle and what they can't. So I know you like to hear your bass, and it's a good way of really finding the limits of the speakers. You said even in their marketing, they talk about we're getting more bass out of it. So it's how it handles everything across the frequency spectrum at the same time. And I know if you just like your vocals, your jazz and intimate music, it's a whole different ballgame to test it. You say, well, let you do it this way. I'm doing I'm trying to test things in the shortest amount of time. Listen, I've said it before and say it again. Listen, what's the best music to test your speakers with? Hang on a sec. It's the music you listen to. It's the music you listen to. It's the music you listen to. That sounds pretty crap, as did the Xtreme 3 at louder volumes. It's got custom EQ. What can we do with custom EQ? So this is what I suggest at the moment on this firmware, because it could change with different firmwares. On the GG version, my GG version, this is what I found was the most balanced EQ. As a starting point, before you then get it set to your ears and your listening environment. But I'm going to demonstrate that. And I'm going to start with, if you don't change the volume, so you just have it at a certain volume and then you switch to your custom EQ, how does it sound like?
Passing through the fire, understood you're strong inside, and how I really care. Oh, lover, we still love each other. Come on, let's leave the things behind, and let's fly again.
So comparing before and after without adjusting volume, because I'm coming down -3 from 1 kilohertz and above, and that means we're going to lose volume. The high end is where you get most of your volume from. Less perceived volume comes from the bass. But what we do see is I've reduced the mids and the highs for balance, so relatively you'll hear more bass. The problem here is I'm EQing around this 150 hertz area where we have the upper bass dip, because none of the sliders will affect that area, so there's nothing you can do about it. Overlaying the original track, you can see the JBL in signature mode, 60%, which is, you know, for a lot of people will be normal listening volumes. It's not balanced at all. The upper bass scoop obviously bringing out some of that deeper bass, but overall it's a bright sounding speaker, certainly when you got over 50% volume, and a lack of mids. After EQing it, it's a lot more balanced. And I'm just suggesting this as a starting point. Bear in mind, this is at 60% volume. Lower volumes, you'll already have more bass. Higher volumes, you won't.
So to me, that brings back a little bit of the rumbly bass, the fullness to the sound, and gets rid of the brittleness at the high end. And that's without adjusting. So what I suggest anyway, if you're switching to that EQ, is you just bump the volume 1 notch. If I normalise them, so they have the same loudness, have a listen.
Let's get wild. We can finally breathe and sing along with me. Oh, oh, brother, passing through the fire. Understood you're strong inside and how I really care. Oh, oh, lover, we still love each other. Come on, let's leave the stains behind and let's fly again.
So to me, that's night and day. To you, it may be just a little bit different or worse. It depends. Obviously, you're not listening on Xtreme. When you listen, whatever you're listening to will change it in some way. I'm just saying, for me, when I listen to the actual speakers, that sounds quite nice now. Not even saying that's my EQ. I'm saying that's a starting point for a balanced EQ on my speaker. But hey, fortunately, this dramatically changes how it sounds at every volume, as often we get with JBL. So you've got the bass at 40, 50, 60%, and by the time you've hit 70%, it's relatively dropping off quite rapidly. 80% is basically limiting. And so as you got the volumes, you want to push that bass more and bring down the highs more, but then you lose volume, which you maybe you're outdoors and what you want. And at lower volumes, you want to drop the bass, push the highs to balance out the sound. So that was at 60%. I EQ'd that at 60%. Why did you do it? The trouble is, if that was soundcore, fine, you'd have a different one. You'd have a different preset for low volume, medium volume, high volume. You can't do that. You can't, as far as I can see, unless I've missed it in my rush. You can't do that with the sound. So you'd have to be fiddling all the time. So they've improved it a bit. But with what we expect from JBL, and the money we're paying, 350 quid, it's still a rip-off of what they're calling an equalizer. And as you can see, there's no actual headroom. So depending on the volume, it will do different things in terms of the sound. It will, instead of boosting bass, it may be just dropping mids and the highs. Well, that's what it would do as you go up in volume anyway. Do you know what that leaves? That is a maximum volume test. Ultimate headroom. Oh, I got the wrong page. So the ultimate headroom. Why do I say that? Because everything else is based on the ultimate headroom. At the point at which it's badly distorted, even the software engineers are saying we can't do that. So they're limiting it. That tells me how much they could have EQ'd it or adjusted below. So when we're doing 50, 75%, we're really comparing EQs. But when we go to 100%, apart from the fact we're measuring how loud it will go, we're measuring the ultimate headroom and how much they could have played with it. No jokes, please, at low volume, maximum volume test.
Nothing's gone away. Rocks now dead, nothing left today. This thing, no one gets today. We can't spin the truth. Now it's over.
So at the end of the day, JBL Xtreme 3 to JBL Xtreme 4, what do we get? Ultimate headroom. I'm saying ultimate headroom. Of course, you could get more volume if you switch to the sound boost mode, which would cut even more bass and give you a bit more in the highs. But in signature mode, one against the other, we're getting about 1.5 decibels now more volume. So we're stronger everywhere in terms of that bass from 70 hertz up for Xtreme 4. In terms of headroom, a little bit stronger in the mids and the highs. So it just goes a bit louder overall, and it's got a stronger bass ultimately. But tuning elsewhere, there are differences.
So I've seen people saying 3 decibels louder for the Xtreme 4. For me, GG versus GG, it's not a horse. I don't know. Is that a UK thing? We call the horses the GGs. I don't know. So I reckon about 1 decibel, but I have seen other videos. Yes, I do watch other people's videos. They're saying 3 decibels louder. But what I do notice is they're normally measuring max. You should understand, when I say peak, C-weighted, that's a proper peak. When you're measuring a max, that's an average. That's basically what you'd say is an RMS average. It's different. So, first of all, I still can't explain the 3 decibel loudness. When someone says 95 decibels, and I'm saying like 103 decibels, I understand. They're calling it a peak, but they're measuring max. That's not the same as of the absolute peak, where it's an instantaneous along the track, where it was loudest in an instantaneous moment of time, whereas max is between 2 moments in time, which is average. It's an average. Trust me on that. Is what I told her. But oh yeah, so that's it. Well, we got through it. And actually, it was only about 40 minutes sitting here, but by the time I had the clips, it was about an hour. So I said, I'm going to leave it all in. I don't care. That's what I told her. I could get in trouble for hacking. Right, we're going to do the specs. I got the glass. See, I know I'm relaxing. I've just picked up my drink without even thinking about it. Right, we're going to do the specs, if you're interested. I have got the specs for all 4 speakers here, because originally I planned to do all 4 speakers, but I realised it was a mess anyway, just any video I do. But, you know, just having 2 speakers, because I realised, you know, this will still be relevant in a couple of years, even though there'll be loads of firmwares down the line, but people would assume it's still the same because they don't know, like us, because, you know, we're quite niche when we follow all these videos, that these things change with firmware. So I have left the specs in. You may find that interesting just to see, but I'm really talking about 4 instead of 3, but maybe other things. So obviously the names have changed. 1, 2, 3, 4, all made in China.
China.
You can still get the JBL Xtreme 3 in the UK for 190 quid versus 200. So this is basically a slightly upgraded JBL Xtreme 3. If you've already got an Xtreme 3, you can't justify it because it's 190 quid versus 330. 140 quid extra is simply not worth it unless the bigger battery is a massive deal for you. How many dollars when I checked in the US? $330, $350. It's pricing obviously all over the place because look what I already said about the Harman Kardon Go Plus Play 3, my favourite speaker at the moment, and a lot of you are saying that as well. At the price, always about price. Batteries, as I said, 68 watts and 37 watts, 36.3 watts. So that's the biggest upgrade. They doubled basically the, yes, I do know my mass, it would have been 72, but 68 watts is almost doubling the capacity. Guys, I keep telling you, when you're quoting the milliamp hours, only, you might tell me the JBL Xtreme 2 was a 10,000 milliamp hour battery and the JBL Xtreme 4 is a 9,444 milliamp battery, but understand you've got to multiply that by the voltage to get the actual capacity. And do you know what? With all the improvements, do you know what codec it is? SBC. It looks like, as far as it still doesn't even have AAC. When I use my Bluetooth scanner on my Android, it says SBC only, and that's absolutely ridiculous. Bluetooth 5.3 and Auracast, of course, would require 5.2 or above, and that seems like they've locked it down. Needlessly, they didn't have to do that. That's really, 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 really bad. So it's got USB-C, but now it's got power delivery support for the USB-C connection. They've dropped the auxiliary. You could understand that if you could use an on-the-go cable. Maybe you still can, a specific cable, but I can't get it working. A lot of other people tell me on JBL speakers they can't get it working. But as a power bank, it's a massive improvement. So it's more than double the output power. JBL Xtreme 1, back in the old days where it's about innovation. That was an innovation when it came along, the size and the sound. And you could use it to make phone calls. Look, it's not a deal breaker, is it? Not to me. But maybe it is out in the wild for some people that it can handle phone calls. Could handle phone calls. Come on. And we know, I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the charges. Had the functionality to be used as a speakerphone, and they still didn't enable it. the decisions they make to protect other speakers most of the time, they're saying, well, I can't see what it actually says 100 watts, probably does. I've had that before on the Harman Kardon speakers where they were arguing about it. Like I think in the UK they didn't say, they invited you to add it up, and then on somewhere else they just say it's 100 watts or whatever it was, and then you go on the support and ask them to explain it and they can't explain it and stuff like that. So given it looks like it's a little bit of a tweak, we're getting a decibel more, I would say that's still 50 watts. They're just playing fast and loose with the specs and inviting you to add it up without breaking any laws or anything. It's just like you can say what you want anyway. It's not double the output anyway, I can tell you that, of loudness, which it should be 50 watts. It should be another 3 decibels. It isn't. Although some people measuring max say it's 3 decibels. In terms of the weight, it's a little bit heavier. So 2.1 kilos, well, so it's 2,100 grams, 1,968 grams, almost the same size, slightly bigger, got a bigger battery, but the heaviest of them all was, of course, the JBL Xtreme 2, because we went to neodymium magnets after that for the 3 and the 4, so that saves some weight. It does float, but it will float with the drivers up. I can't get it to float with the drivers up. So frustrating. So it will save you if you drop it in the pool or something. Remember, it's IP67. The 6 means dust-proof. The 7 means you can submerge it into up to 1 metre of water, which is not that deep, 3 feet, for up to 30 minutes. And even sometimes then it's a bit knackered. By the way, when I only dropped it in my bath for a few moments, and even the next day, when I took the cover off, there was still water inside. So it's not very well waterproof. That was before I had removed the cover, so it was nothing to do with me taking the cover off and putting it back on. Talked about the drivers. So we don't have an auxiliary. The others had auxiliary. I can tell you, for 33 milliseconds lag. You don't want any lag on auxiliary. My 1 and 2 had no lag at all in terms of streaming YouTube. Remember, this is not a straight, what is the latency lag on Bluetooth. This is my experience on my Android. If I was streaming YouTube, a real world scenario, how much lip sync issue will I see? I had 33 milliseconds over Bluetooth is great. That doesn't mean say it's 33. Remember, there's supposed to be your device, the receiving and the sending, the receiving and deceiving, the receiving and sending device handshake. So they're supposed to be able to tell each other what the lag are. There should be no lip sync. Never mind what the actual lag is. This is about how they handshake. 33 milliseconds on is fantastic. Streaming YouTube on Xtreme 1. But then 235 milliseconds to Xtreme 2 is awful. Extreme 3, 100 milliseconds. So for me, 80 milliseconds or more becomes very obvious lip sync issue. And then 250 milliseconds. So for me, so different devices, your experience may be different. I can only tell you, in my work, if I bought it, if I was you and you still had my old-fashioned Samsung S10 Plus, and you were streaming YouTube, and you were streaming movies, it would be very, very annoying. We got the 5-band equalizer, still very limited because you can't save your own presets. So for different, have a preset for each volume. Had a 3-band, that was even more ridiculous. But that was basically it. So if you're thinking, for me, it's about price. Depending on what price you get and what volumes you listen at, I think there's enough improvement in terms of features like the Auracast. Maybe someone will hack it and that will go open source or whatever. The replaceable battery, the longer playtime. It got a bit more bass at louder volumes. If I had a straight choice, I'd get the 4 over the 3. If I've got the 3, which I have, and it was just about, will it sound better? Well, it's not significantly, it's a little bit better, and only a little bit better at louder volumes. So if you're really going to buy this speaker and listen at quieter volumes, which I really don't know why you do that, because you're paying a huge premium for this type of speaker, given what else is out there. I mean, first of all, if you just want one that sounds better, you'd get the Blast, Tribute Stormworks Blast, or you'd get the Harman Kardon Go Plus Play. But if you want something that's smaller and more compact and more knockable, obviously, one of the things about JBL is they're very knockable, very travel-friendly. Then you've got things like the Motion Boom Plus, Motion Boom. I don't particularly like the Motion Boom Plus, but I know a lot of people do. But in terms of how loud it goes and the weight, and what firmware you're on, and the fact that you get 2 of them for the price of this, I mean, it's still a ridiculous price. We joked about that when it first came out. This JBL Xtreme priced 1 or whatever, and then 2. That was before we had real competitors. We now have real competitors. It's just ridiculous. There's not $330 or £350 or whatever it is of enjoyment there, other than your JBL fan, You know, you're already into the JBL. I mean, maybe that's why they've locked it down. You're already into the. Why else would you buy it? You've already locked yourself into the JBL ecosystem. You've got tons of other JBL speakers, and it means you can now, if you get, there's no point in getting the Blast or something like that because you can't hook it up with your other JBL speakers. It is nice hooking up, which I've done loads of other JBL speakers via the app. In past, it's been very flaky. Works pretty well. Hooking up multiple speakers now with different types of connections, so Connect Plus, Party Boost, etc. They all seem to be working for me. So that's the other major reason to get it. But to upgrade from a 3, don't know. Maybe it depends on the versions that you've got. But ultimately, it sounds better at, well, I've already said it. How many times can you ride the same horse in the same race? Sounds better at louder volume, sounds to me worse at lower volumes. You pay your money, takes your choice. The JBL Xtreme 1, very different. It's a lovely well, I said lovely. It's got a huge upper bass. There's still, and it's the only one you can pick up with one hand. Still reasons, because you probably really cheap on eBay or whatever. Still reasons to buy that. It's like the Onyx Studio series. There's a reason still to buy every one of those in the series, and they all have something different about them. As I said, upper bass and mid bass, deeper bass. And, well, it depends where you are. It's a bit more of a scoop, but it depends, because the frequency response measurements are not the same as the real world spectrum analysis, relatively. Thanks for watching. Those of you who skip right at the end, it doesn't help me very much. And the rest of you who've actually watched it, I don't think, there'll probably be about 5 people, I think, that will watch it through the end. As you know, I value your support, thank you. It does take a bit of motivation to sit here when, you know, I'm not really monetizing it to any degree. It's about, do I enjoy doing it? So, I know some people don't want to see me here at all and constantly give me kicking. You're quite right, don't give the trolls any time. I've done it again, and I just know you outweigh the trolls. Just let the trolls know I get about 100 million times more positivity than your negativity. And most of you, a lot of the trolls, still from one company. Doesn't make me wonder. I'll leave you with that thought. And you probably watched 2 hours of my video and you're still none the wiser where we are with the JBL Xtreme 4, other than it's still extremely overpriced. I thank you for watching. And let's all pray for world peace. Thank you.
What the was that?
You Raiders!
You boom.
It comes from China.
My speaker's got deep bass, balanced mids, and a bright high.